Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Didi. I'm a South African living in New York City. And on this channel, I share my inner world outwardly and I share some tidbits about what the experience has been like of moving from South Africa to New York City. I am absolutely overwhelmed by how many people have chosen to support this channel and to come onto this channel. I think at the beginning of this year, I had something like 170 followers or 100 and I don't know, just under 200. And I have been doing this for quite some time. I did not have an expectation that the few videos that I've made, like the last 4 videos, would do so well. I'm so happy to have you here, and I hope you feel like you're getting some value some value from being here. And I'm looking forward to sharing more and offering some more insights around the experience of being a South African living in New York City and all things living abroad, right? Because it's not just about New York City. Yes, in my instance, in my case it is, but there's a lot of things that translate to living in other places. This is part of a series that I am beginning called Things I Think I Was Prepared For, But I Was Not. Okay? Things that you think you're prepared for, but you're probably not. And this is obviously in the context of moving abroad, maybe moving to the US or some other place. And I thought that I was prepared. I thought I knew what was coming, and actually I had no idea. So today I'm going to be tackling the number one thing, which is your lifestyle is going to take a dip. There's going to be a lifestyle that's going to happen when you move to another country. That is, I have to put this little caveat in there, that is considered to be, like a more financially stable country, right? Like if you're moving from South Africa to maybe Malawi, you might have a different experience. If you're moving from South Africa to Brazil, you might have a different experience. But if you're doing the move similar to a move that I've made, which is like moving from South Africa to like the US, which is where I live in New York City, or the UK or Canada or Australia, New Zealand, somewhere in Europe, you get my vibe, right? There's going to be a lifestyle dip. And that lifestyle dip is as a result of the fact that the quality of life in South Africa for the most part is good. Even when I was low income, like as some of you already know, I grew up in Garankuwa, a low income black township outside Pretoria. And even in that context, I feel like, and obviously this is upon reflection, but also at the time that I was living this, I felt like, we good. We can play outside. We have friends. We have fresh running water. We have electricity. We have a little lawn outside. I felt like we were doing well. We had fruits. We had veggies growing in our backyard. We're good. And upon reflection, I'm realizing that obviously there were some things that I didn't realize were not as great as they should have been. But for the most part, my childhood was, a childhood. Like I felt like I was a child when I was experiencing my childhood. And I think that it's in those little things that we don't think about, where some of those the quality of life being better in South Africa, we don't see. So for instance, having a backyard. Do I have a backyard now? Please, I don't have a backyard. I might have one maybe in the future, but right now I don't have one, and it's not an expectation to have one. Can I just decide, okay, if I have kids one day, they can just play in the streets? Sweetheart, no. You know what I'm saying? Can I just go to the supermarket and buy iwisa, supasan, bohobe, bubi? No, not gonna happen. And so there's some things that are little things, because they're little things when we're at home because you don't have to think about them, but they're big things when you've moved to another country because you realize just how much you miss them and how much you leaned on them, right? So as I've already mentioned, smaller apartments, the living situation is different. Right now, I've become an expert at tuning out the neighbors. Yes, because there's always something happening in the neighborhood. Maningning nilidi cricket because now it's summer. As soon as it got hot, people start getting cricket, fireworks all day, at night, in the morning, in the afternoon just because, right? So you tune out the sounds. Also, I think this is because I grew up in a township, so it was loud anyway. So the cricket and things like that, I'm used to them. But what I wasn't used to is more like hearing your neighbors walking upstairs, hearing like somebody dropping something upstairs because their floor is your ceiling. And I know those of you who grew up in apartments might have had this experience, but for me, I was not used to it. And actually, even when I lived in an apartment in Cape Town, I don't remember really being able to hear my neighbors the way that I'm able to hear my neighbors here. You know, the little things like having access to the foods that you like to eat. And I think I've spoken about this before. You can get them, but you're going to have to pay for them. And it might be that in places like the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, where there are a lot of South Africans that maybe did thing in the supermarket, I don't know. But here, that's not the case. I can get access to those things, but they're more expensive than they are at home, which makes me feel like it's a weird thing to spend money on. So right now, I use Goya, which is like another product that's from Mexico. It's the same thing. It's called Masarepa. And I use that as pap. The other thing is... your career. Your career might take a dip, you know, when you come over here. And I'm actually going to do a separate video about that, how Africans are perceived in the workplace, because baby, there's some things that happen. But your career might take like a bit of a 3 steps back type situation. I know that happened for me. I had to make a conscious choice that like, okay, I'm going to go in this direction, and I know that part of what's going to happen is that I'm going to have to make some changes in my career that might feel in the moment like I'm taking some steps back in order to propel myself forward. It's like, think about stick racket. You have to pull it back, right? To then let go of it and let it propel forward. So sometimes, to be honest, I do think about how if I had continued at home and not moved, I would probably be the executive director of an organization right now, or like in senior management, you know, executive leadership. I know that for a fact. But because I have decided to, because I made the choice to move countries and have a career in a different place, I've had to accept that there's going to be some steps backwards, all right, that were taken as a way to start walking forwards. The other thing that's like a lifestyle dip that we don't think about in South Africa, there's a lot of people who have cars, right? Because of a public transport system. When you move to a place like New York City, having a car is a liability. It's expensive. There's tolls that you pay. It's not like at home where like, I'm not going to pay the toll. You pay the tolls. You pay the tolls. They will find you. There will be a warrant out for your arrest. Please understand. Parking tickets. We have this thing called alternate side parking, where if you park outside, which that's where most people park because we don't have parking garages, okay, that's very rare, that once a week, in our neighborhood, it's twice a week. It's on a Tuesday and a Monday. In other parts of the city, it might be 3 times a week, right? Depending on how busy it is, for street cleaning. Nice that you can have your street cleaned, right? But at the same time, I have to move my car every time. So there's a whole culture of like having to wake up in the morning to move your car and then wait for them to street sweep and then park, or get up in the morning before they do street sweeping so that you are out of there by the time, because you know what? You will get a ticket. Uber. When I was in Cape Town, you know, I told you guys at that time, I feel like I was doing fairly well because I had my own business. I mean, looking back, I'm like, damn, I was still struggling. But at the time, I felt more stable than I'd ever been because I grew up poor, right? So if you're comparing it to like the way that I grew up, I felt like I was doing fine, which is a blessing. But I used to use Ubers quite a bit. Like if it was late at night, I was like, there's no way I'm going to walk. I'm going to take an Uber, you know, or a cab. Somehow that was something that felt very normal, you know. Here, to take an Uber is so expensive. Like, and it makes sense because New York City is a very congested city. So they're trying their best to make sure that it's not convenient for people to have cars because, firstly, Manhattan is sinking. I don't know if you guys have read that. Like, it's literally sinking. Like, the city is sinking because a big part of Manhattan is reclaimed land, meaning they took concrete and all kinds of things to create new pieces of land. And actually, in Cape Town, it's the same thing. But here, it's sinking because there's so many buildings. It's so heavy. There's just a lot going on. So they're trying to limit and slow down that process, but also trying to limit and slow down the traffic situation because it doesn't matter what time of day it is, there's always traffic on the BQE. Those who know. And so it's very inconvenient. You're paying tolls. It's expensive to maintain your car. Well, maybe not as expensive as at home. You also, like, parking tickets are real. You will pay your ticket, please. And then there's obviously tolls, and now there's a congestion tax. So because they also have a relatively good public transport system, it's like, okay, the transport system is the thing that you're supposed to be using, because that's what we spent millions of dollars on, and it runs actually 24 hours a day, which is really something that took a while for me to get used to. It's really amazing. So yeah, if you're gonna take cars everywhere, whether it's Ubers or your own car, it's going to cost you. And actually, at the end of the day, to me, maybe because of where I am financially right now, not going to be there forever, it does feel like it's quite an investment, when I could just take the train. And every now and then I do take an Uber. Yes, I love to have that feeling of like, I can just breathe in the car by myself, as opposed to like being on the train and you just don't know what's going to happen, on the train. For the most part, it's fine. But every now and then you're just like sitting on the train. Next thing you know, somebody's playing with a snake next to you in the train. Or you're chilling in the train. Next thing you know, somebody is doing the things in front of you. Like, isn't that supposed to be reserved for your bedroom? Or you're chilling there and then somebody just, I'm not trying to scare you guys. But these things happen. They happen. And there's also other nice things that happen on the train, like people playing music and people doing performances and things like that, But it can be a bit like you have to kind of have your armor on when you get on the train, And I feel like my skin has become thicker since I've moved here. I don't know how long I've been speaking. Okay, 11 minutes. I think it's time to end. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I knew cerebrally, I knew in my head that there was going to be a lifestyle change and maybe a lifestyle dip when I moved to New York City and when I moved to a different country. But I did not actually expect it to be the dip that it was. In my previous video that I made about the experience of studying abroad and how I survived it, was that I had to go to the food pantry to get some food at some point. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't able to make ends meet. Sometimes I had to jump over the turnstiles. I've explained this to you, and that's why now every time I get on the train religiously, I pay, no matter how much of a hurry I'm in, because it's kind of me going, thank you, subway system, for carrying me all those times when I wasn't able to afford it. So the lifestyle dip will happen. Arm yourself, prepare yourself, and it's even more intense if you don't have family where you are moving to. I don't have like blood family where I live here, and so that's also obviously made it a bit harder, but I still think that it's hard even when you have family. And I think that this